How do we reach the love of Allah? A scholarly summary of the book The Love of Allah by Ibn Alqayyim. Welcome to this summary of the book The Love of Allah by our great scholar Ibn Alqayyim. This book is amazing and will help you understand what true love for Allah means, not just as a feeling, but as a living reality that changes everything inside you. In a world full of noise and distractions, our hearts often become scattered, searching for peace in the wrong places. This book brings you back to the most important question: where is your heart? And to whom does it truly belong? Ibn Alqayyim does not write to lecture you or to make you feel guilty. He writes as if he is gently holding your heart and saying, "Come, let me show you the path to real closeness, real rest, and real meaning." This is not just knowledge to memorize. It is a journey to live. A journey that starts with understanding, grows through experience, and ends with a heart that finally finds its home. So take a deep breath, quiet your surroundings, and let this summary be a companion to your heart. Because what you are about to hear may change the direction of your life forever. Let us begin. How do we attain the love of Allah? A scholarly summary of the love of Allah by Ibn Alqayyim. Not every love can be spoken. And not every longing can be understood. There is a kind of love that when it enters the heart, it changes its direction forever. The book Love of Allah does not knock on the door of the mind first, it knocks on a deeper place. A calmer and more truthful place, a place where loud voices are not heard, only whispers are heard, whispers that are heard only by those who have tasted closeness or have been lost in distance. Ibn Alqayyim does not write here to convince you, nor to argue with you, nor to impress you with words. He writes as if he is gently holding your heart and saying, "Come, look how Allah can be loved, and not only out of fear and not only out of hope, but with pure love too. A love that rearranges life from the inside." This book does not speak about passing love or a temporary feeling, it speaks about a love that when it settles, it changes how you see worship, patience, trials, and even sins, repentance and returning to Allah. We will walk through this work step by step, not to summarize meanings, but to live them calmly. To open them as deep feelings are opened. Slowly, with honesty, and without haste. We will understand how Ibn Alqayyim sees love. How it begins. How it grows stronger. And how it fades when understanding is absent. And how it is the foundation of every living act of worship. Not a body without a soul. This script you will hear was prepared to be listened to with a present heart. To be a companion in moments of stillness, when you search for a meaning that is quiet and for closeness that does not exhaust. Chapter 1. What is the love of Allah, and why is it the foundation of the entire path? When Ibn Alqayyim speaks about the love of Allah, he does not begin with definitions, and not with abstract sayings. He begins with a truth that is shocking and calm at the same time. Every movement in the human heart, and every direction in a person's life, has one single source, either a sound love that leads him to Allah, or a confused love that pulls him toward something else. Love, as Ibn Alqayyim sees it, is not an extra addition to religion, and not a secondary level for those who want more. It is the very soul of faith itself. Actions without love are like a body that moves without life, correct in form but dead in meaning. Here he places us before a question we cannot escape. Why do we worship Allah? Do we worship Him only out of fear? Or only out of hope? Or because deep in the heart, it finds no rest except with Him? Ibn Alqayyim does not deny fear and he does not deny hope are the foundation in spiritual journey, but he places love in the position of leadership. Fear guards the path, and hope encourages the journey, but love is what makes the journey itself a pleasure. The one who loves does not ask, "Why do I do this?" He feels that the action is part of his truth. He prays because he feels closeness. He remembers Allah because his heart becomes calm. He struggles with himself not out of hatred, but out of longing for the purity of nearness. Then Ibn Alqayyim draws our attention to a subtle truth, that hearts cannot exist without love. By nature, the human being is a loving being. If he does not love Allah, he will love something else, and if he does not attach himself to his Creator, he will attach himself to a created thing that has no power to benefit or harm him. Here lies the essential difference. Love is either a ladder that raises you, or a chain that weighs you down. The love of Allah frees the heart, while the love of other than Him, if it takes control, enslaves it. Ibn al-Qayyim goes one step deeper and reveals that the love of Allah is not a claim that is spoken, and not a passing feeling. It is a state whose effects appear in behavior before words. Whoever loves Allah, loves what Allah loves, hates what Allah hates, longs to meet Him, and feels distant from anything that separates him from Him. Not because he is forced, but his heart has changed. He emphasizes here an extremely important idea, that true love changes the scale of priorities. What was heavy becomes light, what was difficult becomes bearable, and what was tempting becomes worthless if it leads away from Allah. Then he speaks about a deep sign by which a person knows the truth of his love. The truth of his love is found on obedience in private moments. Many people obey in front of others, but only a few are sincere when no one is watching. Here love appears not as words, but as a living conscience. Ibn al-Qayyim says in this topic is that love does not grow through force, but through knowledge. The more you know Allah, the more you love Him, the more you reflect on His names, on the signs of His mercy, and on His wisdom in what He decrees for you, your heart opens without you even realizing it. For this reason, love is not a decision, it is a result. A result of deep understanding, honest reflection, and patience in purifying the soul from false attachments. Ibn al-Qayyim ends this meaning with a very profound insight, that whoever tastes the love of Allah no longer searches for the meaning of life outside. Not in people. Not in money. Not in status. Because when the heart finds its place of rest, it becomes calm, even if everything around is unstable. Here we reach the first chapter, that the love of Allah is not an advanced stage, but the correct beginning. Without it the journey remains exhausting, worship feels heavy, and the heart stays scattered, even if it appears upright on the outside. With this understanding, we have placed our feet on the threshold of the truth. Chapter 2. Why was the heart created for love? And how does it go astray? Ibn al-Qayyim starts from a truth that seems simple but shakes all superficial ideas about humans. The heart was not created to be empty or neutral. It was created to love. The heart is not a still container. It is a living being that moves toward what it loves, rises with what it attaches to, and falls when it clings to what it was not created for. The real question is not whether we love, but what we love and to whom we give the center of our heart. Ibn al-Qayyim reveals a precise rule: every pain in the heart, every inner disturbance, every unexplained worry, comes from loving what is not its proper place. If the heart clings to what is perishable, it suffers when it is lost. If it clings to what changes, it is disturbed by its fluctuations. If it clings to what cannot be faithful, it is silently pierced by disappointment. But if it clings to Allah, who never ends, never changes, never betrays, and never disappoints those who seek Him, it finds stability, even through storms. Ibn al-Qayyim also warns that the deviation of love does not happen suddenly. A person does not wake up one day to find their heart far from Allah. It happens slowly, through small compromises, attachments we justify, and things we allow into the heart thinking they do not matter. And every time, something other than Allah takes up more space in the heart, Allah takes up less space in the heart, without us noticing. Until the day comes when we pray without presence, remember without warmth, obey without longing, and wonder, where did that old feeling go? Ibn al-Qayyim does not scold or punish. He diagnoses and calmly explains like a wise guide: the heart is like a scale. Two loves cannot equally lead, one will lead and the other will follow. If the love of Allah leads, the world follows in your hand, not in your heart. If the world leads, the love of Allah retreats to the edges of behavior, not to the center of the soul. He gives us a beautiful image: the heart is like a bird, its head is love, and its wings are fear and hope. If the head is cut off, the bird dies even if the wings remain. This explains why some acts of worship collapse despite their abundance. They were not built on love, but on habit, pressure, or mere fear. One of the deepest points Ibn al-Qayyim makes in this chapter is that loving Allah does not compete with loving creation, rather, it is the balance that makes it right. Whoever loves Allah also loves people through Him, in Him, and for Him. They do not demand from others what they cannot give, nor tie their happiness to fickle hearts. But whoever does not fill their heart with Allah will demand from humans what is impossible: perfection, permanence, absolute security. Then they suffer when they discover that humans are just humans. Ibn Alqayyim concludes this point with a sharp image: if the heart has not tasted the love of Allah, it will drink from any water, even if it is salty or poisoned. From here begins the real journey, the journey of redirecting love, not by force or coercion, but through understanding, unveiling illusions, and returning sincerely to the origin. From this chapter, we understand that the problem is not only weak faith but the direction of the heart, and that repairing the path does not start from the outside, but from the place of love within. Chapter 3: How the love of Allah arises between knowledge, taste, and inner transformation. Ibn Alqayyim does not see the love of Allah as a feeling summoned by will, nor as a state created by wishing. Rather, he sees it as the natural fruit of a deep inner journey that begins with knowledge, passes through taste, and ends with a silent transformation at the center of the heart. The heart, in his view, does not love the unknown. Every sincere love must be preceded by knowledge, not shallow recognition that passes over names, nor knowledge stored in the mind without touching the inner self. True knowledge touches meaning, reveals wisdom, and reinterprets what we experience daily. When a person truly knows his Lord, not just what he heard about him, but through his actions and his hidden management of life's affairs, the heart begins to open without noise. Ibn Alqayyim says with deep meaning, whoever knows Allah by his name Ar-Rahim, the most merciful, understands pain differently, and whoever knows him by his name Al-Hakim, the all-wise, no longer sees events as meaningless, and whoever knows him by his name Al-Latif, the most gentle, realizes that what he was saved from was not coincidence, and that what he was given was not merely what he deserved. Here love begins, not as an emotional defense, but as a quiet inner peace. Then Ibn Alqayyim moves to a deeper stage, which people of the heart call taste, and it is not something easily explained, because it is not understood through words, but through experience. Taste is when you feel that remembrance of Allah is not just repetition, but companionship, and that prayer is not a heavy duty, but a moment of return, and that supplication, dua, is not a list of requests, but a sincere confession of need. At this stage, Allah does not become a distant idea in the mind, but a living presence in the details, in patience, in hesitation, in falling, and in rising. Ibn Alqayyim emphasizes here an extremely important meaning, that love is not only born in moments of purity, but often it is born in moments of brokenness, when hope is cut off from everything, and only the door of Allah remains open. Hearts, as he says, are closest to Allah when they confess their weakness, not when they adorn themselves with strength. Then comes the real transformation when the relationship with obedience itself changes. Obedience is no longer a test of willpower, nor a burden on the soul, but a natural expression of what is inside. The heart reaches a stage where it does not ask, "What will I gain if I obey?" but rather, "How can I not obey when I love?" Here Ibn Alqayyim clarifies a subtle difference: whoever worships Allah only out of fear may run away when he feels safe, and whoever worships him only out of hope may retreat when he faces loss. But whoever worships him out of love, his steadfastness comes from within, not from circumstances. One of the silent signs of this love is that your view of sins changes, not because you have become sinless, but because you have become shy. The shyness of the heart toward the one it loves, not just fear of punishment. Ibn Alqayyim ends this chapter with a piercing insight, that the love of Allah does not mean the absence of pain, nor the end of trials, but it means that pain is no longer meaningless, and trials are no longer abandonment. The lover feels pain, but does not despair, breaks down, but does not get lost, because he knows where to return. And so we understand that the love of Allah is not an ideal state beyond reach, but a sincere human path that begins with knowledge, matures with taste, and settles with an inner transformation that is not seen, but its effects are seen in everything. And with this, we have come closer to the core of the path. Chapter 4 is Signs of the Love of Allah when the heart speaks without sound. Ibn Alqayyim does not leave the love of Allah in the realm of abstract feeling, nor does he make it a hanging idea whose truth is unknown. Rather, he brings it down to the ground of reality, to the details of behavior, to the small reactions that no one notices. And there, he says, the truth appears. True love does not need announcement, and is not measured by how much we talk about it, but is known by quiet, steady signs, like a pulse, not seen, but never stops. The first of these signs, as Ibn Alqayyim mentions, is that the heart inclines toward Allah in times of privacy more than in times of public. The true lover does not seek witnesses, and does not need anyone to see him. It is enough for him that Allah knows. When he is alone, he does not feel emptiness, but feels that he has come closer to the place of closeness. Here Ibn Alqayyim distinguishes between someone who acts because people are watching, and someone who acts because his heart cannot bear distance. The first gets tired quickly, and the second finds his rest in the action itself. Another subtle sign is that a person finds pleasure in obedience, not because it is always easy, but because its meaning has become clear. The lover may get tired, and the action may weigh on him, but his heart does not feel burdened by it. Obedience for him is not a prison, but a path, and not a test, but a renewed closeness. Then Ibn Alqayyim moves to a deeper sign, contentment with Allah's decree, not meaning passive acceptance, nor cold surrender, but a contentment that says inside, "My Lord knows best, even if I do not understand." The lover does not require full understanding to feel at peace, nor does he wait for wisdom to be revealed before he calms down, because his trust comes before explanation. One of the most amazing things Ibn Alqayyim mentions here is that one of the signs of love is that the heart's attachment to creation becomes lighter, not out of hatred for them, nor withdrawal from them, but freedom from them. He no longer expects perfection from them, nor ties his peace to their approval, nor collapses if they let him down, because he no longer asks from the limited what they cannot give. Here true peace is achieved, to love people but not be attached to them, to be kind to them but not make them the center of security. One of the signs that Ibn Alqayyim emphasizes greatly is frequent remembrance without effort. For the lover, remembrance, dhikr, is not a schedule to follow, nor a number to count, but a natural calling of the divine presence in the heart. He remembers Allah because he longs, not just because he is obliged. He remembers him in hardship, in joy, and in silence. Then comes a deeply sincere sign, shyness before Allah. Not just the shyness of fear, but the shyness of a lover before his beloved. He feels shy to disobey him, not only because he will be punished, but because he does not want to break that closeness. This shyness, as Ibn Alqayyim says, is one of the finest fruits of love, because it indicates the life of the heart, not just the intensity of watchfulness. He concludes this chapter with a deep insight, that one of the signs of love is that a person finds his comfort in returning to Allah after a mistake, not in running away. When the lover makes a mistake, he does not distance himself, but returns faster, because his heart knows the way. With this we understand that the love of Allah is not measured by claims, and is not summarized in a single emotional moment, but appears in calmness, in steadfastness, and in the way a person deals with himself, with his Lord, and with people. And with this, we have gone deeper into the features of the path, and the discussion about love is no longer just an idea, but a life that is lived. Chapter 5. What weakens the love of Allah? The hidden obstacles we do not notice. After Ibn Alqayyim explains the meaning of love, its foundations, and its signs, he takes us to a more sensitive area, an area that many people do not like to stop at, because it forces a person to look at himself without beautification. The love of Allah, as he says, does not disappear suddenly, and is not pulled out from the heart all at once. Rather, it weakens, fades, and quietly withdraws when obstacles increase and the heart neglects to guard it. The first of these obstacles is heedlessness, ghafla. Not the major heedlessness where a person abandons the entire religion, but the small repeated heedlessness when the day becomes full, distractions pile up, and worship becomes a delayed margin. Heedlessness, in Ibn Alqayyim's view, is like dust on the heart. It does not kill it, but it blocks the light from it little by little, until remembrance of Allah becomes heavy, humility, concentration, focus in worship becomes rare, and closeness becomes a distant idea. Then he mentions a more subtle obstacle, excess in permissible things. It is not only the forbidden, haram, that weakens love, but sometimes it is uncontrolled expansion in the permissible, halal, when the body takes more than it needs and the heart takes less than it was created for. The heart, as Ibn Alqayyim describes it, when it becomes filled with worldly things, becomes too tight for the hereafter. And when it is crowded with pleasures, remembrance becomes heavy upon it, not because remembrance has changed, but because the inside is no longer empty for it. Then he stops for a long time at companionship that weakens. Hearts are affected by conversations, by what is said as a joke, and by what is repeated without intention. Companionship that does not remind you of Allah does not push you directly toward sin, but it distances you from remembrance, drops reverence from the heart, and makes disobedience seem lighter. This, in his view, is one of the most dangerous things that steals love without you realizing it. Then comes the obstacle that many people do not notice: delaying repentance. Not persistence in sin only, but procrastination when a person knows his mistake and says, "Later I will return, when I calm down, when I have free time, when I am ready." Ibn Alqayyim says every delay of repentance is training the heart to become accustomed, and every habit weakens the heat of love. He adds a hidden inner obstacle: self-admiration, being impressed with yourself. When a person sees his obedience and forgets Allah's favor in it, when he becomes impressed with his uprightness and becomes occupied with himself instead of his Lord. Here the relationship changes. Instead of obedience being a door to closeness, it becomes a mirror for the self. This is one of the fastest things that corrupts love, because when the heart is filled with itself, there is no room left for anything else. Then Ibn Alqayyim give a deep warning that the greatest thing that weakens the love of Allah is forgetting the hereafter, not denying it, but forgetting it in the daily rush. When this world becomes the highest ceiling of thought, the ultimate goal of worry, and the only measure of success, love fades, because the heart has been stripped of its horizon. But Ibn Alqayyim does not leave the reader burdened at this point. Rather, he whispers to him at the end that knowing the obstacles is half the path, and that the heart, when it becomes aware, returns faster than you think. Love does not need a miracle to return, but sincerity and an inner decision to come back. And so we leave this chapter knowing that the weakening of love does not mean its loss, but its neglect. Chapter 6: How to Nourish the Love of Allah, Means of Revival After Weakness. After Ibn Alqayyim revealed what weakens the love of Allah, he does not leave the heart suspended between guilt and confusion. Rather, he opens the door of practical hope, the door of revival after weakness, the door of a quiet return that does not need noise, but sincerity. The first thing he emphasizes is that the love of Allah is not regained by being harsh on yourself, nor by excessive self-blame, nor by tense religious attempts that start strong then fade out. Rather, it is regained as it was formed, through understanding, through gradual steps, and through gentleness. The most important nourishment for love, in Ibn Alqayyim's view, is renewing your knowledge of Allah, not theoretical knowledge that is repeated, but knowledge that touches reality. To look at his names and attributes as if you see them working in your daily life. When you understand the meaning of Al-Latif, the most gentle, in what Allah saved you from without you knowing, and the meaning of Al-Ghafur, the most forgiving, in how he covered you despite your shortcomings, and the meaning of Al-Qarib, the near, in that supplication that came out of you without preparation, love moves automatically. Then comes another nourishment of equal impact, the Quran. But Ibn Alqayyim does not speak about quick reading, nor about quantity, but about recitation that stops you, that makes you feel the speech is directed at you, in this situation, with this weakness, with this question. The Quran, as he says, only revives hearts to the extent that it is allowed to enter them. Whoever makes it a companion, not a duty, returns with a living heart without realizing it. Then he speaks about remembrance of Allah, supplication, not as a number to complete, but as a presence. Supplication said with reflection, not with haste. Supplication repeated because the heart needs it, not because the schedule demands it. Supplication, for Ibn Alqayyim, is like water for the earth: a little continuously is better than a lot that is interrupted. Love is not nourished by bursts of energy, but by continuity. One of the most amazing things he mentions in this topic is that one of the strongest means of reviving love is not just struggling with the body, but watching what enters your heart as you watch what enters your mouth. To ask yourself, does this bring me closer? Does this weigh me down? Does this weaken my presence with Allah? There are things that are not forbidden, but they exhaust the heart, burden the soul, and make closeness more difficult. Then he points to a deeply impactful means: sincere solitude. Not isolation from people, but short, regular moments when the heart is present without a phone, without noise, without pretense. In these private moments, you hear the whispers of love again. Only there does a person understand why the early Muslims were so careful to have times when no one shared with them. Ibn Alqayyim does not forget supplication, dua, but not only the dua of asking, but the dua of complaint, the dua of confession, the dua of seeking closeness. To say to Allah, my heart has hardened, my weakness has lasted long, I want you and I do not know the way alone. Ibn Alqayyim says with very deep meaning, whoever is sincere in seeking love will be given the path to it, even if after a while. He concludes this chapter with a message of reassurance, that weakness does not mean the end, and that return does not require perfection, but one sincere step. The heart, no matter how far it goes, knows the way when sincerity calls it. And with this, we have learned how the love of Allah is nourished after it weakens, and how it is revived again without harshness or despair. Chapter 7: The Love of Allah in Times of Trial, when Sincerity is Tested. Ibn Alqayyim reaches here a delicate stage of the path, a stage where love is not measured by words, nor by feelings, nor even by peace, but by steadfastness. Trial, in his view, is not an accident in the life of the lover, but part of the nurturing process. It is not a sign of distance, but often a sign of care. Many people make a mistake. Many people think that the love of Allah means a life without pain, or a path covered with ease. True love, as Ibn Alqayyim explains, is tested when some blessings are withdrawn, when answers are delayed, and when silence prevails. Here appears the difference between those who loved the gifts and those who loved the giver. Whoever's love was conditional will shake when he loses, and whoever's love was deep will feel pain, but will not turn away. Ibn Alqayyim says with precious meaning, Allah tests to remove from the heart a hidden attachment to other than him, and to rearrange priorities. Trial is not always punishment, but sometimes purification. Then he speaks about a painful inner image that many people know, when a person obeys, then is tested, and says to himself, why me? Was I not close? Was I not sincere? Ibn Alqayyim does not blame this question, but redirects it, and says, the question is not why, but how. How do you deal with the trial? How do you look at it? Do you see it as abandonment or as a message? Do you see it as injustice or as nurturing? Then he reveals with us a very deep meaning, that one of the signs of Allah's love for his servant is that he grants him good thoughts about him during hardship. How many tested people were lost, and how many tested people came closer? The difference is not in the event, but in the heart that reads the event. Ibn Alqayyim stops at patience, sabr, but not cold patience, nor rigid patience, but patience mixed with love. Patience that says inside, I do not understand everything, but I trust you. This patience does not extinguish the pain, but it prevents despair. It does not remove the tears, but it prevents collapse. One of the deepest things Ibn Alqayyim mentions here is that the true lover does not make the trial a reason to abandon obedience, but a reason to review his intention. He asks himself, was I worshipping Allah for his sake, or for what he gives me? If he finds hesitation in his heart, he knows that Allah did not expose him, but alerted him. He emphasizes an important truth, that when Allah loves a servant, he does not leave him to himself during hardship. Either he strengthens his heart, or opens for him a door of supplication, or sends him a meaning that makes him firm. All of that is hidden kindness. Then he concludes this chapter with a deep insight, that the greatest fruit of trial is not in its removal, but in the change of the servant after it. Whoever comes out of the trial more sincere, closer, and softer in heart, has gained from it, even if the pain remains. And so we understand that the love of Allah is not only measured in times of ease, but is truly known when sincerity is tested and the heart remains directed, even if it feels pain. And with this, we have reached the stage before the last stop. Chapter 8. The love of Allah, the end of the path when the heart settles and the striving calms. In this final place, Ibn Alqayyim does not add a new concept as much as he gathers all the threads and brings us back to the first question, but with deeper awareness and a more mature heart. Where does this entire path lead? The answer is not a vague station, nor a distant mystical state, but a clear human condition, the settling of the heart with Allah. The love of Allah, at its end, is not constant emotional intensity, nor continuous euphoria, but stability. It is when the heart finds its natural place after a long search, long attachments, and long disappointments. Ibn Alqayyim says with very deep meaning, the heart was created to love Allah. When it loves Him, it rests. And when it attaches to other than Him, it remains restless, even if it owned the entire world. At this stage, a person no longer asks much, what will I gain? When will relief come? Why is the answer delayed? Because the center of the question has changed. The question becomes, how do I stay close? How do I preserve this light? How do I not return to being lost? Here Ibn Alqayyim describes a rare but possible state that a person lives in this world with a heart attached to the hereafter and with a soul connected to Allah, without isolating himself and without abandoning his responsibilities. The true lover does not leave life but corrects his relationship with it. He works, strives, feels pain and feels joy, but his heart does not follow every wave because he has found the anchor. Then Ibn Alqayyim stops at a great fruit of the love of Allah, inner freedom. Freedom from exaggerated fear, from unhealthy attachment, and from draining anxiety. Whoever loves Allah no longer fears loss as he used to, does not collapse at disappointment, and does not exaggerate in clinging to praise or blame, because he has replaced a temporary attachment with a firm one. One of the finest things he mentions here is that the love of Allah does not cancel pain, but it cancels being lost. The heart may feel pain, but it knows where to place its pain. It knows to whom to complain, to whom to return, and from whom to expect healing. Then he points to a final sign that is almost the summary of the entire path, that Allah becomes more beloved to the servant than himself, than his comfort, and than his narrow choices. Not in the sense of hating oneself, but in the sense of trust. To trust that what Allah chooses for him is more merciful than what he chooses for himself. At this moment, religion transforms from effort into meaning, and from struggle into harmony. Ibn Alqayyim concludes this station by saying that the greatest blessing given to a servant in this world is not in how much he owns, nor in how little he loses, but in a heart that loved Allah, so Allah loved him. This, in his view, is the true success. A success that days do not extinguish, changes do not steal, and death does not cancel, but rather begins with it. With this chapter, the journey is complete in terms of meaning, but it does not end in terms of impact, because the love of Allah is not a text that closes, but a path that is lived every day, with all sincerity. Conclusion: the love of Allah, when the heart returns to its home. At the end of this journey, we do not leave with memorized rulings, nor with numbered points, but we leave with something deeper, quiet but sincere feeling that the heart has found its way again. The love of Allah, as Ibn Alqayyim revealed it, is not a station for the elite, nor a rare state for the select few, but a return to the original nature, the return of the heart to what it was created for, after long distraction, long scattering, and long searching in places that did not satisfy it. This book did not promise a life without pain, nor faith without weakness, nor a path where you never stumble. But it offered you something more valuable, a compass. A compass that tells you, if you are lost, the path is here. If you are weak, the door is open. And if worship feels heavy, return to love, for it is the foundation. The love of Allah is not measured by how much you achieve, nor by the intensity of feeling, but by direction. Where does your heart turn when the noise calms? To whom does it return when it breaks? And in whom does it trust when it does not understand? Whoever finds Allah no longer needs to prove anything to anyone. And whoever loves Allah no longer fears being weak, he knows where to place his weakness. The most beautiful thing about this journey is that it does not end with the last word, but begins after it. It begins in prayer with more presence, in supplication with more sincerity, in repentance with less effort, and in a heart lighter than it was. If you find yourself after listening this calmer, a step closer, more honest with yourself, then that is enough. The love of Allah does not need leaps, but small, steady steps with sincerity. Until we meet in another journey of meaning, remember that the greatest thing you can strive for is not to love much, but to love correctly. And there is no love more correct, more merciful, or more vast than the love of Allah, the exalted and majestic. Last advice from me is this: return to knowing Allah. Reflect on His names. Notice His mercy in what He gives. Let your heart learn who Allah truly is, and love will follow naturally. Pause for a moment. Ask your heart, what is it loving today? And take one small step, today, toward knowing Allah more. The most important thing I will leave you with is this: do istighfar a lot, all the time, just keep repeating.
Astaghfirullah, Astaghfirullah, Astaghfirullah.
And soon, you will come back and comment here, telling us that Allah has changed your life in a way that feels like a miracle.